Conducting an interview. An interview involves an interviewee and an interviewer, right? Here we have, in these pictures, we have an interviewer and we have an interviewee. This is probably the person being interviewed, and that is the person who's going to interview her, and the other way around. That is the interviewer and the interviewee. If we look at the pictures, you can see that the situation there, conducting an interview, is a formal event. Look how beautiful they look. Their hair neatly shaved there and neatly combed. They're beautifully groomed. They look friendly. They look sharp. They are dressed neatly and appropriately and professionally. That, in essence, is what an interview is. What happens now? What is this really about? It is an opportunity for the interviewer to find out something about the interviewee, the person looking for a job, to find out whether this person is suitable for that particular position, because the interviewer will be part of the position situation. In other words, the job that this person is going to do, he will be part of that company, for instance. So will this person fit in? So we've already seen it involves an interviewer, an interviewee, sometimes an audience as well, and sometimes there will be more than one interviewer sitting there in a panel of, say, 3 and asking questions to this interviewee. And sometimes there will be more than one interviewee being interviewed at the same time. That is rare though, but more than one interviewer, that happens often. So remember that in a classroom situation, if you are asked to do, for an oral assignment, to do an interview, you will be assigned a role. You will either be conducting the interview or you'll be interviewed yourself. So you're either the interviewer or the interviewee. And it makes a difference, because if you're the interviewee, you are going to have to think about answers to certain questions. If you're the interviewer, you are going to have to think about questions that you'll ask the interviewee. If soon after you've left school, perhaps, or even perhaps during matric, you go for an interview, make very sure that you do a lot of research on the internet. There is so much information on the internet about this. So go and do some research, please, in terms of your attire, what to wear to an interview. Look at styles and which of the styles that you see there actually suit you best. And then think, for instance, of accessories. Make sure that you know about accessories, that you must not wear too much bling, and that your handbag is not too big or too flashy. Make sure that you look at the colors that you are suggested to either avoid or to wear for certain occasions. Make sure that whatever you expect from this interview, that you dress appropriately, that it will be effective for that specific occasion. It is very important to make sure that you are totally prepared for the interview. In that, for instance, you make sure that everything is packed out the previous night, that your clothes are ironed, that your shoes are neatly polished, and so forth, and that everything's lying there ready, and that you've remembered everything. Remember, though, that if you are asked to do an interview at school for marks, you are going to sort of resemble this very same event, but it will be a school situation. Now, it doesn't mean that you now have to go out and buy yourself a suit such as that one, for instance. No, you go in your school clothes, but you make sure that you are as neatly turned out as you should be for an interview. So take equal care to look smart for your school interview. It doesn't matter whether you are the interviewer or the interviewee. Please take note that these are models and this is not a hint as to what to do. Don't put your hands in your pockets when going to an interview. Right, now, what to take along to an interview? If it's a professional interview, let's say for a position in the corporate world, you are going to make sure that you know exactly who the person is that you're going to meet. Might be a very big building in Sandton and there might be strange corridors and so forth, and you might get there and be somewhat lost. Make sure that you know exactly who you need to meet so that you can ask around, and that you have a contact number for that person so that you can contact that person if needs be. Take breath mints if you like. Make sure that you have in your bag, you have your ID in case it's needed. You have a notepad and a pen. Don't sit there and say, oh dear, I forgot a pen. Extra copies of your resume, a list of references, should you be asked for them. It's usually part of your CV, but should you be asked, have them handy. Samples of work, for instance, if it's a practical thing and you have art to show. And if you are going to show the art on a laptop, make sure that you have everything there. That you don't and ah and say, oh dear, what I do now? You must be fully ready for this interview. And for a school interview, also have these things handy because the teacher might just, for the record, want to check whether you know these things and say, oh, for that we'll perhaps need an extra copy of your resume. Do you have an extra copy? Yes, I've got one. So in other words, be 100% ready. So before conducting the interview, if you are the interviewer, make sure that you know exactly what the purpose of the interview is. What exactly do you want in that person that's coming for an interview? Do research about this person. Make sure that you know what this person is all about, the background information of the interviewee, so that you at least know who this person is sitting in front of you, that you're not totally clueless, and this person might be a criminal for all you know. Who knows? But do your research. And also do research about the relevant issues, in other words, regarding the post, etc. Make sure that before you start that you have the venue and the seating arrangements done. You also don't get embarrassed if you have to go and run around and search for a chair. It must be professional and ready. Prepare questions. Please prepare questions. Make sure that you do. However, make sure that you are flexible enough to make your questioning sound natural. So be willing to deviate from the questions. The next question that you say had in mind to ask might already have been partially answered by the person. So then alter the next question or change the next question. And sometimes it might be clear from the eagerness in the interviewee that he or she wants to say more about the previous aspect mentioned. So just be very intent on these things and be flexible in that regard. The process of the interview is very definite, and there's a specific structure to it, and usually it should not take longer than about 10 minutes. Perhaps professionally, slightly longer, but the shorter the better, actually. It must be to the point, right? There will be the introduction where the interviewer says, here I am the manager, or I'm the CEO or something. This is my title, and what is the purpose of this interview is to get a person for a certain post, or a certain position. The next thing you're going to have to do is to create or establish a rapport between you and the other person. Make sure that the person trusts you from the outset. Create an atmosphere of friendliness and trust, not too casual, not too colloquial, but just an atmosphere of trust. Then, when you start asking the questions, ask from the general to the specific, and they must all be relevant. Don't ask this person questions that has nothing to do with the position that she's applying for. So, in other words, be from general to specific, but relevant questions. Make sure that you check your language. It must be it must be formal. It must be mature, sensitive. Do not offend the person. It must be respectful and perhaps persuasive. If the person is a bit reluctant to speak about something, persuade the person to actually reveal what you want revealed. If it's an important thing that you want to know about the person, then make some notes after you've listened very carefully and evaluated the response and responded effectively. Make sure that you make a little note of the salient points, or just a word that will remind you of something very important about this person that you still need to go and research or go and look up, or something that sort of struck you most about this person. Just a few notes. And then after, just before the end of the time frame that you've set for this, you should summarize in sequence. Just say to this person, so this is what you've established, that this is what you expect from this position, this is what we are willing to offer, and that is the prospect for the next 5 years. Or that. Just do the little summation there, and then you close. You don't just jump up and run out. You close the interview officially by thanking the interview, being friendly and polite, and you must provide some kind of contact information, either that the person should call you in a week's time, or that you will call the person, or the person must do this or that and the other. But you must give the person some kind of idea of what comes after. How will the person now know what you think about him or her, or is there any chance of her getting this position? How will she know this? So just make sure that you give that kind of response to the person. And then, of course, you will sometimes be asked to be the interviewee. In other words, now you're going to have to answer the questions, and one of your peers will be asking the questions. You'll switch roles, right? So, what will happen there? Also make very sure what the purpose of the interview is. Do the relevant research about the company here. Now you're going to have to know something about the company. Research what they do. What products do they deliver? What services, whatever it is. Do research about the organization. And it will be quite simple, really, to anticipate questions that you might be asked. What will the interviewer perhaps want to know from you, right? What will you be asked? So, and then think of appropriate answers. Just have it up your sleeve. Just have it there somewhere, so that you don't sit there stammering. Please make sure that you are not late, because that's a very bad sign. If you arrive late at an interview, what are you going to do when you work there, when you've already got the contract signed? So arrive early so that you can find the venue and not get lost and nervous and afraid of this whole situation. Make yourself comfortable. Rather wait for a few minutes, but be there. Make sure that you're properly groomed, etc. Make sure that you dress appropriately. It's very, very important. You must also listen very carefully to questions, and don't answer a question which clearly shows that you didn't listen to the question in the first place. So answer clearly, right? And honestly, so clearly and clear and honest answers. Be polite and seem interested in the company. Ask relevant questions. Don't ask other questions. That's something that you saw in a corridor or something. It's got nothing to do with your interview. So relevant stuff. And if you want to, you can bring in a bit of humor, but don't be too familiar with this person. This interviewer is not your friend, but you can bring in humor. There's nothing wrong with that. It might just create a friendly atmosphere between you and your interviewer. If the rapport is such that you think you can, without becoming offensive or something, do it. But don't if you think it's not called for. Then the one thing that you must always remember is that the interviewer will want to know why this position. Why do you want to work for this company in that position? And it is something that you're going to have to prepare for. Now, the first thing, as I said, is that you must do research about the company. You must know what the company is all about, and you must be able to see yourself in that company and think, what contribution can you make towards that company? How do your goals align with the goals of the company or the ethos of the company? Will you really fit in? You're going to have to think about it and work out an answer. So really get prepared for the question, why do you want to work here, or why did you apply for this position? So mention aspects of the company that appeal to you and align it with your career goals. In other words, go more general in terms of your goals, not only like this is what I'm going to do and I like doing this, but also the goals of the company. Because you might like the type of job, but you might not be so happy with the ethos of the company. So if that is important to you, and you mention something like that, okay? So something like, I'd love the opportunity to work with a company that's making a difference. If the company is making a difference, if it's all about animal care or whatever it is, finding a company with a positive work environment and values that align with my own has remained a priority. You want to work for a company that feel the same way as you feel about important things in life, values, right? And that then you compliment the companies by saying, and in that regard, you are top of the list. You really stood out as the one company that I really wanted to work for.